Imagine landing a permanent government job in Canada, which many consider as the holy grail for many immigrants in Canada, and then walking away from all of that. Sounds crazy, right? Well, I did that. And before that, I had also worked in government on temporary basis a couple times and wondering, will this ever be permanent? As a matter of fact, I prayed to have a permanent government job. But then the twist, those temporary roles ended up becoming the best decisions that I ever made. And so, in today's episode, as I continue my series on my career journey in Canada, I will be sharing with you why I did not hold on to the permanent government job I had and why I chose to leave, and most importantly, how you can turn any temporary position into a career launch pad. I'll see you. Hi there, welcome back. My name is Anita Adefie, and this is episode 7 of my 10-year of my 10-year career journey in Canada. And this is where I've been sharing on this series the real raw journey of my life career and growth as a Nigerian Canadian woman. And I'm also the founder and CEO of Advanced and Fulfilled Coaching Company, and this is a company that is dedicated to helping immigrated professionals advance their careers in Canada without all the overwhelm. And so, in today's video, like I said earlier, I will be talking about my government experiences and how I went from one temporary to another, but how those temporary positions became my key career decisions that became the most vital career decisions I made, and how I walked away from a two temporary positions actually in government. And I'm also going to talk to you about how you can leverage temporary positions, whether in government or outside, for career advancement in Canada. So I hope you are ready. So I know that, for a lot of newcomers, having that temporary position is very key. It gives you that sense of job security. It's like the ultimate prize. But one thing I want you to take out of my story today is the proof that there's more than one path to success. And regardless of where you find yourself, intentionality and having good strategy in place is what will get you farther than just working hard. So like they say, work smart, not work hard. Work hard too, just work smarter. All right, so let's start from the beginning of my first job in government. As many of you know, if you've been following the series, you know that my very first job in government was a summer student position. So naturally, it was just 4 months position that I had. Now, at the time I was also in a master's program, doing my master's in public administration, and with this program comes an executive internship component. When I picked this master's program, I was going to do my master's anyway. I also wanted to further my education to just give me additional leverage and increase my competitive advantage stance. And so when I started this master's, I had thought that the internship was going to be my leg into government. And then I actually stumbled on the fact that there were summer student positions available in government. And so I applied and I got the job. And so after I got that job, my internship position, actually the way it works in my internship program is that within from the school, you apply to the school, to the department. They review your resumes, they review all the resumes, and then they shortlist candidates that will then be interviewed. So not everybody automatically gets the internship. Now, when you're interviewed for the internship, not everybody still gets their list submitted to the ministries, their names submitted in the list to the ministries, right? And then from the ministries lists, from the list submitted to all the ministries that show interest in interns, the hiring managers will start to reach out and chat with each student and then make a decision on who they wanted. I actually got 3 offers. I got 3 offers from that internship position, and I made a decision to stay. I initially wanted to stay with Ministry of Social Services. That was my initial first pick. My second pick would have been Ministry of Justice or Corrections, but I didn't do corrections at the time, or justice. I didn't do corrections at the time. I got corrections gave me an offer, but I didn't do corrections at the time because I knew the person that I was going to be working with one on one And I didn't want, like, I was just being mindful of any kind of perceived conflict of interest, right? She was really upset, but I hope you forgive me. And then I also got another offer from the ministry where I was already working, but a different department. So I don't even remember if they knew that I was with that ministry at the time, or maybe they knew, I think. But I was with that ministry, but a different department or division, like they would say in provincial governments, right? And so by the time I got that opportunity, I made the decision to stay with the ministry I was with, which was Energy and Resources, because I figured that I was working at first in the resource development side. For those who don't know, I'm a policy practitioner. So I've worked as a senior policy analyst and planning consultant for as long as I've been in government. All right, so I was working on the resource development side and working on economic development. And the offer that I got was from the regulatory division. So I felt like, you know what, being in this ministry does two things for me. One, it gives me a broader understanding of what they do, both from a resource development perspective and from the regulatory perspective. So I wanted to get that full balance. And then two, the second one really is important. I always talk about it, network, right? I already had started building a good network within this place, and I wanted to just sort of broaden my horizon of people. Maybe there's a third reason. The third reason is that going into government, I've been more of this, I'm a social policy kind of person. And I found myself in Minister of Energy and Resources or Economy at the time. I honestly didn't think I was even going to get that job in the summer job, but I got it, right? And so finding myself in more of the economic development kind of policy work, which I didn't think was my best area of interest, nor strong suite, but I got it and I was doing great. And so finding myself there, I thought, you know what, if I go into social or justice or any of those kind of other social science based kind of policy work, it's my comfort zone. So this other kind of work would actually stretch me because it's not my comfort zone and it's not my natural area of interest. Plus, there's something about just knowing the ministries that make the money for the economy and then having an appreciation for whenever the social side starts to get that money to spend. Anyway, those are my reasons why. And so I'm just setting context, okay? So bear with me. We'll get there. And so by the time I got into government, technically 1 year in government, the first summer position was for 4 months, and then this internship position was for 8 months. So my first 1 year in government already was very uncertain, right? Because one, you get a summer job, there was no guarantee that I was going to get the internship, but here I got the internship. Two, now that I'm in the internship, there is no guarantee that I would have gotten there was no guarantee that I would have gotten anything after that, but I did. All right, I did. So I will talk to you about how each of these positions started to leverage me. And the next position I got after that internship and at the end of my program was also a temporary position. It was a 2-year temporary position. In government, they call it term positions, right? And then after that, I got another term position and another, and then I got a permanent one. So but by the time, and in all of this, I was going through the whole frenzy of I want a permanent job, I want a permanent job, I want a permanent job. But by the time I finally got the permanent job, I resigned from that permanent job, and then I resigned to go take another temporary position. Crazy, right? But the truth is that I had understood something at this point that gave me the courage to be able to do that, because I know that whatever I had been able to get as permanent can be replicated. Success is not success until you can replicate it, right? It can be replicated. Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed the seeming security that a permanent position gave me, but the truth is that at any point in time, anybody can be let go. All right. And maybe I'll say this, that one of the things that even helped me was something my mentor told me, which is that treat every job as a temporary job. I don't care if it's permanent. I don't care if they tell you they will never take you out of this place for the next 25 years. Treat every job as a temporary job. Act on that job like you're going to have to leave that job, or you'll be asked to leave any moment from now, and then treat it as such, not in a negative sense, but I give it your best. Because here's the thing with temporary positions, is that you are trying to make it the best of it. You put your best foot forward because you're hoping to get some form of extension or a permanent position out of it. So the way many of us tend to treat temporary positions is a little different from, the way we tend to treat our permanent positions, where we feel a little more secure. And maybe that's the first lesson that I would even leave with you on, how to leverage temporary roles or career advancements. Is something my mentor told me that I'll share with you, which is treat every position as a temporary position. So in my whole mindset of, oh my god, it's temporary, I need permanent, I need to feel secure and whatnot, he just told me, even if this was a permanent position, treat it like temporary. And so I took that mindset into it. And what that meant is that go above and beyond, make yourself indispensable. Why? People remember your excellence. Not just the job, not just the job title, but they remember your excellence. They remember how you went above and beyond, right? And it's not some kind of kiss ass kind of thing, sorry for the language, but it's not just, kind of like a pretentious thing. That's the word I should have used, right? It's more of a recognizing that my time here is limited. And when I do leave, what do I want people to remember of me? What do I want people to say about me? I want to make sure, yes, nobody is totally indispensable, but I want to make sure that they'll have a difficult time refilling my position, right? And so having that mindset, it just makes you show up a lot more differently, right? So number one is that treats every job as a temporary job regardless. All right, so now you that you're in temporary, recognize that you are in a temporary position, and don't just treat it like uh, um don't just treat it like something that you're just doing to get by, like, oh my god, poor me, look at me, after all it's temporary, so I'm not going to give it everything. No, you want to reverse as the case. You want to give it everything, right? Because seek to impress. It's that simple. All right, so the second lesson, and I'll be tying it to some of the things that I do, right, is that you want to make sure that you're building relationships. You want to make sure that you're building strategic relationships in these different temporary positions. Now, let me even come back to number one. When I talk about, giving it your best, right? So when I was in the summer position, I did my best, and I'll tie back to number two. I did my best. I understood how they ensure team cohesion in that group, and I joined them. They're going for coffee 10 a.m., 3 p.m. These were real things. I would join them. I didn't have coffee money, of course. I was a student. And sometimes when they say, oh, you're not having anything, I'll be like, I'm a student, remember? Guess what? Sometimes they bought coffee for me. And then other times I would just maybe brew my own coffee and take along because, it's cheaper for me. And but the point is that I immersed myself. I didn't treat myself as a student, and nobody was even treating me like a student. They gave me work to make sure that I was building the right kind of skills that I needed, and I was doing the work not as a student, not with a student mindset, but with the mindset of that I am a professional. All right, and I am a professional, right? It's not my first time working in a job or working in government, and so I had to let them see that I'm a professional, right? And so I did what I needed to do. When it was time to do my presentations and all that, I will treat it like I was the actual professional. I was the actual consultant hired to do that. I saw myself more as a consultant than as a student, right? And to do all of that. And by the time I was leaving that division to go to the next, now, here's the interesting part. Senior leaders talk. People talk. My senior leader in my first division, where I did my summer internship, she started talking to my leader in where I was doing my executive internship. And they will talk. And he's like, oh, she worked with you. Yes. Okay, what was, give me some feedback about her. And she had amazing things to say. Amazing things to say. I'm still very much in touch with that leader till today. She had amazing things to say. By the time, which really helps even the way that my new leader was now perceiving me, right? And so that's the importance right there. That's why that is important. Okay, so just want to mention that. Now, the second piece is building the relationship. Like I said, I'm still very much in touch. I keep saying this, and I'm in touch with at least one or two persons from every single place I have ever worked. Every single place I've ever worked. Still in touch with at least one or two persons from there, right? So build those relationships, network internally, get to understand what is going on in other areas. Why? Because here's the thing, especially when you're on the inside and you're looking to grow from within that organization, regardless of whether it's government or not, right? The likelihood that when there's an opportunity they would want to feel internally is very high. And so when you're building all these networks and you're building allies around the place and you're getting interested in what is going on in other areas of the organization, when there is an opportunity, guess who is top of mind for them? You. In fact, in some instances, you might find people starting to advocate for you. All right, you might start having people advocate for you. I've been in positions where my managers are the ones advocating and saying she's not going anywhere. In one of the places where I had worked, a position was created with me in mind. Right. And so those are the things. If that was a permanent position that I had, it was created with me in mind. It was created for me, crafted with me in mind, right? And why? Because in building the relationships, and this was interesting because it was in IT. I built relationship in this other organization with the IT team, just trying to help integrate their plans into the corporate plan of the organization. And in doing that, the director of IT really paid attention. I was like, man, this person is not going anywhere. So when my term was about to be up, and then he was like, so your term is about to be up, like what's next? And I was like, I don't know yet, but I've been applying. He's like, what do you mean applying for jobs? And I said, well, I've been applying because of course my term is about to be up. The person I'm covering on mat leave will soon be back, and when she's back, I'm gonna have to leave. And he was like, no, you're not leaving anywhere. He stood up from his desk, went into my CFO's office and said, I don't know what you guys are doing, but she's not going anywhere. And then he went to my manager and said, I don't know what you guys are doing, but she's not going anywhere. And my manager said, are you kidding me? I am already working on it. She's not going anywhere. She just doesn't know it yet. So let her just, keep applying whatever she's doing. Let her keep doing. But she's not going anywhere. And eventually they offered me a position and, and changed my job titles and changed some things. And I was able to have a say in what that looked like, right? But I wasn't happy because they wouldn't increase my pay, which I will talk about very soon, right? So network. Ask for mentorship if needed, right? Because people hire who they know and who they trust. But when you've not built that relationship, it might even be somebody leaving where you are, going somewhere else, right? And then they remember that your term is almost up. And they have hiring power decisions in that other place. They can tell you ahead, hey, I'm going to be leaving, and I think I might be hiring positions where I'm going to. Would you be interested? Or here's my card. Keep in touch. Let's talk. And when that position comes, they'll think of you, truly, right? So that's the second thing, is build relationships, not just resumes, okay? And then the third thing is volunteer for stretch assignments. Again, one of the most powerful, I think, things that when I was doing my executive internship, the mentor that I was assigned, one of the most powerful things that he told me and taught me is put your hands up for the assignments nobody wants. They're high risk, but they're also high reward. If you feel, especially when you're in those positions on temporary basis, especially if you're holding like internship kind positions or summer student positions, if you feel, people will forgive you and they'll understand that, yeah, it was a hard one to begin with, right? And people would actually applaud you for trying. But if you succeed, those kinds of high risk assignments are like career advancement catalysts. So always put your hands up. I'll give you another example. When I was doing my executive internship, there was a program I was tasked with, and it was to a project I was tasked with. It was to set up an entire governance system around and establish a safety committee for the entire organization, for the entire ministry. I'd ask if you ask me for students and for somebody who doesn't really know a lot of people around the organization. So I spent more than half my time building relationships, building connections, talking to people, establishing those connections, and the other half convincing people to do this, to do things. And God knows where I found the extra time to now actually put the processes, policies, the procedures, and all that together. But I did this. Now, to do this, I also had to extensively read a standard called the National Standard for Psychological Health in the Workplace. Couple months after I'd left my students' positions, I'd left all that, I'd graduated, I was now working in a different ministry. 6 months into my 2-year term, I get a phone call saying, hi, my name is so-and-so, I'm calling from Public Service Commission, and I've heard this and this about you. I'm like, yeah. And they're like, okay, I heard that you're very knowledgeable about the national standard. I was like, yeah, well, yeah. Turns out this person wanted to hire me because of the work that I had done from that executive internship. Someone had mentioned my name to the person, and they wanted to hire me as a consultant to come do that. So I left my term position and went to take another 6 month term position. But guess what? From this position to the other, it was about 4 level jumps, and it was, oh god, math always fails me, but it was a couple percentages. I forget how many percentage, right? I was trying to do the math in my head, but it was a good salary jump, right? And so I left there, and then I went into this position, did it for 6 months. Now, here's another thing about temporary positions that I'll tell you, is that the beauty with temporary positions and why you should not run away from them. Don't get me wrong, if you get a good permanent position, by all means, please enjoy your permanent position, right? And I'll talk about what to do even in that, okay? However, if you find, because I find some people who get very frustrated with, oh, I'm only getting temporary positions, I'm only getting temporary. If that's you, then really this is for you, right? And for someone like me who I just sort of went through a lot of temporary positions, is why I'm sharing this, right? So one of the things with temporary positions that I find is that it helps you sort of, it's like you're in a buffet. You can taste all these different things, right? And then decide which one you really like best, and you can go back and focus on that. So for me, that was one of the things that all these temporary positions were giving me. It's like, okay, now I've done a bit of economic development, I've done a bit of taxation policy, I've done a bit of mineral policy. I like it, it's okay, it's nice. But I didn't like it as much as maybe I liked doing investment attraction, right? Which is what I was later doing. And maybe I didn't like, as much as, yes, I'm a big fan for mental health and all of that. I found out that I didn't really enjoy as much doing the program management, because it was more of program management than anything else. I didn't really enjoy the program management piece of doing the psychological health and safety in the workplace. I didn't enjoy that as much as I did investment attraction. I didn't even think I was ever going to enjoy investment attraction. So I'm discovering myself in the process as well. I'm discovering my interest. I'm discovering where I really want to focus on. In all of this, it was where I discovered that I do love strategic planning, and started to just niche myself a little more into that. It was where I realized that, yeah, no, I didn't make a mistake going to School of Public Policy, because I do love public policy, right? And I mean, it's also something I'd done prior to moving to Canada. So obviously, I know I love public policy. So that's the other thing with temporary positions, is that it allows you to just sort of buffet. You're like in a buffet, and then you're picking this, you're picking that. You try this, you try that. You don't like it, you can walk away from it. There's no full attach. You're not as attached to them as they're not as attached to you, right? So there's no hard feelings anywhere. It's a very non-committal kind of thing. The only thing is you commit to excellence, all right? You always commit to excellence. So volunteer for those stretch assignments, because you never know, right? And say yes to projects that would even build your skill outside of your current job description. Okay, so number 4, collect feedback and showcase impact. Okay, ask for performance early. You may not have the luxury of yearly review. As a matter of fact, you don't. Treat it like that, and you realize that you might be doing something wrong, and then they'll just tell you end of term, bye bye, and you won't even know what you've done wrong or not, right? So schedule regular times with your supervisor, and have touch points where you're sort of getting feedback. How am I doing? Is there anything I'd like to improve? Oh, by the way, here are some things that I've achieved over this time. Make sure they're documented, okay? Document the things you're doing, document the successes you're having, document the results, document some challenges and how you're overcoming them. Don't just document challenges, because that makes you a problem teller, not a problem solver. Okay, so document challenges, but also document your plan on how you're going to overcome them, and how you overcome them, and the eventual results when you do overcome them, right? Gather testimonials and references before your term ends. This is also tying back to number 2, which is the building relationship piece. All right, ask people to give you feedback from their perspective. Now, for some people, you might have situations where maybe you can't talk to your direct supervisor, or you can't reach your direct supervisor for references later. Guess what? Some of these people whom you've talked to provide feedback on you, they can be references later. People don't know this, but they can be, right? So collect feedback, build those relationships. When you do, let's say, a presentation or a cross-team collaboration kind of work, get feedback from people you've worked with. As much as possible, keep these things documented. If you're a LinkedIn person, go on LinkedIn, recognize the project, recognize the beauty and the success, mention the names of people who worked on it, recognize their role in it, and then, put in there what you feel like, what you've achieved in the in as been as part of the project, and also celebrate yourself and celebrate them. These things keep it documented and make it more credible. All right, it gives a validity, it gives what you're saying and what you're doing validity. So make sure that you're collecting feedback and you are showcasing impacts that you have made. And then number 5, stay visible, and as much as possible, again, apply internally, right? Because then again, especially with government positions, when you're on the inside, it's a lot easier than when you're on the outside, which is another reason why you don't want to turn away from temporary positions that often, because all you need is a leg in the door. All right. From the moment I got into government as that student, I stayed in government until I decided to leave. All right. And when I decided to leave, like I said, I left for another temporary position. I left a permanent position for another temporary position. Right. And so it's even easier, I find, to climb the ladder when you have temporary positions, because if there are people you're dealing with whose concern is you're job hopping a lot, you can tell them, oh, it's not by choice, there are temporary positions, right? And the term ended, they didn't renew, and or they were going to renew, but I just wanted to use that as an opportunity to try something else. You have a solid alibi for why you're job hopping than not, right? Than if you had a temporary position that you're always just sort of moving away from. So stay visible. And how you stay visible is all the other things that I've mentioned, number 1 to 4. That's how you stay visible, making that a constant practice. When you're known and respected, people would want to hire you. Now, eventually I did get the permanent position. Like I said, it was created with me in mind, right? Now, I eventually left because, like I said, they didn't want to pay me what I was asking for. 1, 2, initially they didn't want to change the job title. They eventually did. And then the third thing is, I honestly had been trying to move from provincial government to federal government, and an opportunity opened up for me in federal government. Not just one that was in federal government, it was a federal crown corporation, which meant that I got bonus pay. I was excited about that one. And then 2, it was a crown corporation with headquarters in my city, which meant I didn't have to relocate because I wasn't ready to relocate at the time. So I wanted to remain in my city, but I wanted to work for the federal government. And so that opportunity came up. And 3, it was way better pay. And 4, it was an organization that was large enough that even if I wanted to now job hop, I could do that. And I think I was finally ready to just stay in a place. And so I moved into that position, right? So eventually I left the permanent for another temporary, because that was also a temporary position. It was supposed to be a 10-month temporary position, but I was able to negotiate my way into making it 17-month stay as opposed to that. And the reason I could leverage that was because I told them, I'm leaving a permanent position for this. You got to make it worthwhile. 10 months feels too short to really just 10 months felt too short to really just make my mark as I'd love to. But I feel like if I had at least a year and a half, that will give me enough time to also decide that this is where I want to stay more permanently. I was just speaking English, right? And that's the thing, is that when you've even hopped like that, that's another thing. It helps build resilience and adaptability, because you don't have a lot of time to assimilate. So you're assimilating and you're learning and you're producing results all at the same time, right? So it really just does something to your mindset where you come into a place. The testimonials that I started receiving every time I went into a place was, it feels as though you've been here forever. Like you just blend right in. Yes, because I don't have time. So I have to blend right in, and I have to make sure that I'm quickly producing results, find a lot of low-hanging fruits and quickly producing results, right? So those are some of the ways that I was able to just sort of leverage. In all, from my time in government, I think I went from, so my summer position was 1, my executive internship, and then I got a 2-month, summer was 4 months, internship 8 months, and then I got a 2-year term, and then I did 6 months on that 2-year term, and then left to go and do another 6 months on a different position, came back, did another 6 months on that job, and then left to go take a 1-year term for another position. And the good thing is that the positions were getting higher and higher, right? So it was easier to just sort of go up the ladder. And then I was on that 1 year term position that ended. And when it ended, I was there for, I think, almost another 1 year on a permanent position. And then I left that position. I went to take another 17-month term. And I was on that 17-month term when they started talking about giving me a permanent position. But before that came through, I resigned from government totally and went on to do my PhD. So now I'm in my PhD in public policy. And while I'm in this, I've been doing a project with a municipal government, so that's sort of where I'm focused on right now. So I have my dream of working with all three levels of government at this point, and enjoying my work, and just trying to do my business, not trying to do my business on the side at the same time. So that has just been really some of my part of my journey, working through and navigating temporary positions. Now, even if you're in a permanent position, I want to say this: you're not going to grow as quickly and as fast if you stay in one place for too long. Especially for a lot of us new immigrants, as we're coming into the country, you have a lot of skill experience under your belt. The likelihood that whatever job you are getting is a higher level than where you were before, for a lot of people, that is not the reality. And so what is likely happening to a lot of people is that you're taking jobs that are not at par with where you are coming into the country. And even if you do get something that is at par, there's this mindset that you still have to like pay your dues before you talk about going higher. So which means that if you stayed home, right, 6 months from that time, you may already be due for a promotion. Whereas you're moving here, and even if you get a job at par, you probably would have to prove yourself for like a year or two before there's any conversations on you moving up. The likelihood that when you're leaving point A to point B, you're moving to something higher is it's likely that's the case, right? And so you're leveraging each of those moves as a way of just accelerating yourself and going higher, and then you get to a certain height, and from that height it's easier to negotiate what you truly want. So even when you're in a permanent position, I always advise, put a clock. I'm sorry, it sounds not nice, but put a clock. All right, tell yourself, I'll give 3 years or 4 years or 5 years, not just a clock. What are you going to achieve in that time? What kind of relationships would you have built? What kind of problems would you have solved? Have those kinds of goals in mind. Do what my mentor said: treat every job like a temporary position. What that then means is that you'll give it your best, but you also recognize that you hold your exit strategy. You don't want to stay on a job for so long that when things start to shift, you're the first one out the door. You can build all the value you want. You can be as valuable as anything and be indispensable and all of that. But there are many reasons why they show people the door. It may have nothing to do with your performance. It may have more to do with politics and ops, right? Optics than anything else, right? So make sure that you are rooting for you. You are your biggest advocate. All right. Now I'm going to share some statistics with you before I go. Did you know that 60% of permanent hires in government actually starts as temporary or contract employees? All right, so don't go in there feeling like if you're not getting the permanent position, there is something wrong with you. No, there is nothing. In fact, when you're not getting it, find how you can use it to just launch pad yourself higher and higher. Okay. And then in Canada, over 1 in 5 workers are actually in non-permanent roles, but you can use it as a strategic stepping stone. All right. And then finally, according to Statistics Canada, right, temporary jobs often lead to higher paying roles over time, especially for newcomers who build skills and networks along the way. Does that sound familiar to you? Yes, because you're looking at that person right now who is a living proof of all the statistics that I have just read out to you. All right. So no, do I regret never sticking to one permanent government job? I absolutely do not regret that. Let me even say this: people say government job, they want government job because it's secure and all of that. Maybe that's topic for another day. All right, I will tell you people about, in government at least, all the in-scope part of scope, unionized and all of that, and how all that really works. Because when you understand how all that even really works, you realize that that idea of security in government is really a myth. It's a facade. It's not real, people. I've seen them fire people. I've seen people walked out the door. It is not real, people. So I'll talk about that in another video, but for today, let's stay on this one. All right, the temporary roles that I had, they gave me exposure, they built my confidence, and they helped me to pivot into career spaces that align with my values today. I really could pick and choose. All right, so if you're in a temporary role right now, do not despise it. Use it, leverage it. All right, let it teach you and take you further than you imagined. And if you're in a permanent role, what is your exit strategy? Are you going to make sure that you're positioning yourself for either exit strategy or promotion strategy? Have one of the two, I don't care, but don't just stay comfortable in one place. All right, make a move to make sure that you're moving forward. Okay, so if this episode has helped shift your mindset about temporary jobs, let me know in the comments who holds a temporary position. How have you ever held one before and turned into a permanent role, or walked away from a secure job for something more meaningful? I'd love to hear your story, so let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already, and stay tuned for episode 8. All right, and until then, keep growing, keep evolving. I am rooting for you. Welcome to Canada if you're brand new, and welcome to this channel if this is your first time here. I'm glad to have you. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done so already, and I will see you in the next video. Take care now. Bye.